Yo, what is going on, all you D-League type people? It's your boy Aaron2for20, and I'm bringing you guys my D-League Week 6 game and team builder. I'm gonna put them in one video just because it's late. This is versus OPJellicent, coach of the Toronto Leaf Storms. Now, I'm sorry this vid is late. If you want an explanation for why it's late, I'm actually going to be making a twit longer later today. It'll probably go up at around like 7 or 8. So if you're watching this after 7 or 8 on Wednesday, it's already up. Otherwise, then just wait for it. So, of course, as always, my Twitter will be linked in the description below, along with like my Discord, for example, so that, well, my Discord server, I should say, so that when you guys can join that, and any other important links you guys might find. So, overall, though, I figured, you know, might as well just put these in one video. I'm gonna make the team builder a lot shorter just because it's in one video, because I don't want to make this like a half-hour vid, and I'll make a timestamp as well to where the actual battle starts. You guys will have already seen it, of course, but without further ado, though, let's get on with the actual team. Now, before I begin, I would like to give a massive shout out. It's sort of funny I'm giving shout outs because I know that that's something that Bird does a lot, and I know that Bird's helped me a lot with my other teams, but it actually was not a Bird team. I worked with good friend of mine, Dougal. Dougal actually decided to help me out this week, and not only that, but Dougal also then reached out and got me in contact with L5, who also was helping me a lot with this team this week. The two of them together gave me a lot of good set ideas. I sort of bounced ideas that I had as well off of them in terms of some cores that I almost brought. Ended up backseating a couple of them though, and it ended up turning into this team. Also, of course, the normal front office helped me with one set that I'm very proud of, and I'll get into that in a minute, because it could literally on its own probably plow through Jelly's entire team. But of course, I would like to just start with Bronzong. It's my lead this week. It's probably almost certainly the mon I'm going to lead off with, because it has just a very solid lead matchup versus Jelly's team. For example, if he leads off with Pinsir, I can just Rock Tomb it, and then I can do a lot of damage to Mega Pinsir, of course. Get up rocks as well to deter Mega Pinsir from coming in late game. I have the Colbur Berry, so that way then in case if he is knockoff, I'm going to guarantee live any hit from Mega Pinsir. It would be a 3-hit KO no matter what, unless of course he's set up already. I have Toxic for things like Florges, because even though I do have Heavy Slam, of course, Florges getting worn down by Toxic only means that it's going to be worn down even faster. Of course, it also helps with things like Latias, for example, who is fairly fat. Not the fattest mon, but it is kind of fat. Also, Manaphy, of course, is also punished by Toxic. And if it sets up a Tail Glow as I get a Toxic off on Manaphy, I can always just switch into Clefable. Unaware Clef I have later on in the build. I'll get into that when it comes. But that helps with things like the Xurkitree and the Manaphy if they do want a Tail Glow. And Toxic, as they do go for their Tail Glow, is very nice, as no matter what, neither mon can 2-hit KO Manaphy, so I can always switch in guaranteed and then recover up the turn after. Next up, we have Akiza, our newly acquired Roserade, holding a Choice Scarf this week. It has Spikes, HP Ice, Leaf Storm, and Sludge Bomb. Hits this team pretty perfectly, to be honest. The only mon it doesn't hit is Registeel, and while you could say, you know, first two mons already can't hit Registeel, this does at least take advantage of Registeel, as whenever Reggie switches in, I get up a free layer Spikes. Jelly, it's a very simple way, in my opinion, to beat Jelly. You just gotta hazard stack. You have to make sure he doesn't get webs up, which, spoiler alert already, he did not actually even bring webs versus me, if I'm not mistaken. So that was already a choke on Jelly's part, as in my opinion, Jelly needs webs to win. It's his playstyle, it's based around webs hyper offense. So why he drafted the two most passive walls in the game, I will never know. But overall, though, the third thing, of course, in that plan is you can't let Jelly get webs up. You got to bring somewhat fat offense, and my fatter offense comes later on in the build. And you have to make sure that you can hazard stack versus him. So this is my hazard stack mon. Between that and Bronzong, I can get up Spikes and Rocks. Very solid versus his team. I didn't really need Toxic Spikes because, one, I do have Toxic on Bronzong. Two, he does have a lot of floaters anyway. For example, he has Latias, Lando, Crobat. So while Spikes do help for things like the Manaphy and the Xurkitree, I get just normal Toxic those anyway, and even then, I do have ways to pretty much OHKO those mons anyway through several different means, so I'm not overly concerned in terms of that aspect. He really would have needed webs up to even have any chance versus me, in my opinion. So yeah, overall though, the Spikes do really help in terms of the hazard stacking. Next up, we have Jesus, our Thundurus, with Nasty Plot, Thunderbolt, Thunderwave, and HP Ice. This is our fat Thundurus, has only 148 special attack, a lot of investment into bulk. It's max speed timid because I need to outspeed Latias. The special attack guarantees that with the Z move at +2, I can guarantee take out Florges. Florges, in my opinion, is probably his best switch in. Do this as with HP Ice at +2, I do a fair amount to Latias. I almost always OHKO, or at the very least, I guarantee 2 KO versus any Latias spread. Of course, if he's like Spadef invested, he could probably live a hit at +2. The Thunderbolt with the Z move, though, guarantees a +2 I KO any variant of Florges that I figured would possibly come. I figured it would probably have mostly Fizz Def for things such as the Kang, and overall just a lot of my physical threats, but mainly Kang, I felt like, because it could always Wish Pass versus my Kangaskhan and then pass him something like a Rocky Helmet Registeel, or really just any other Rocky Helmet mon that Jelly would bring, as of course Rocky Helmet best Kang answer, as always stated. Didn't actually really need Kang this week though, in my opinion. Kang definitely, of course, Kang came, but I felt like no matter what, Kang is going to backseat anyway, unless if it really came to a last-ditch effort. So I wasn't really concerned with any sort of Fizz Def Florges, especially because I can take it out with Thundurus if he somehow chooses to bring it. And also, like as I said, this thing just slaughters his wall core. That's mainly what it's for. Also, if he does bring a non-Scarf Landorus, this handles that as well. I didn't expect Scarf. I actually expected possibly a Rock Polish Landorus, as I figured that Rock Polish Landorus could outspeed a lot of my team. Things like the Thundurus are now pressured because I can't outspeed no matter what, unless I get an agility off and it can just go for Rock Slide. Also helps with it. It also helps with mons like Archaeops. If I brought it Scarfed, I would need to have Tailwind up or some sort of other speed investment into it, which I believe it gets agility. I'm not overly sure. I can't remember it off the top of my head. I'm being completely honest. But I'd need, point is, everything on my team would need like a +2 speed to outspeed the Landorus. So him bringing agility Landorus just made a lot of sense to me. I'll get into his set later on in the game though. Anyway, next up we have Patrick. This is the Unaware Clefable I was mentioning earlier. I'm mostly Fizz Def actually. I have some Spadef investment of course, but I'm mostly Fizz Def. I didn't need much Spadef to take on his team. And at +1, I do so much to Jelly's team. If he does not bring Registeel, this set 6-0s his entire team. He has no way around it if I can get to +1 Spadef at that point. Because the only other thing on his team that he would have is some sort of Specs mon, such as maybe like a Specs Overheat from Pyroar, Specs Thunderbolt from Circuitry, which he could very well bring. I feel like Specs Circuitry could come, as of course it would be a way to deter potentially some sort of Unaware Clef, and it would 2 KO any Clef I could have brought until I got to +1. And even then, after Rocks, it could have still 2 KO'd any Clef anyway if I did get to +1. So that was very troubling for me, in my opinion. But if I do get to +1 and he does not bring any Specs mon, this set essentially 6-0s unless if he's just spamming Psyshock on Latias. Even then though, that's why I have the Fizz Def, as I do take on any hit from Latias fairly well, unless if it's like a Specs mod Latias going for Psyshock, which in that case, fair game to Jelly. I do a switch in stat though, so I'm not overly concerned. And I don't expect a Specs Latias anyway. I expect either Scarf or maybe even like a sort of fat Latias, as I mentioned earlier, to take hits from Thundurus. But I expect Specs overall just because it's a pretty decent nuke versus my team besides like Bronzong. So yeah, Thunderbolt plus Moonblast hits his team fairly well. I don't really need anything else, as Thunderbolt does of course hit the Crobat. I could have brought Ice Beam potentially, but I felt like that Thunderbolt was just better overall in terms of coverage on his team. But of course, could have brought Ice Beam. It was almost Ice Beam anyway. Really didn't matter in my opinion in terms of that move. Next up, I have our Archaeops Quetzalcoatl with Jolly Nature, meant to outspeed the, I believe it was meant to outspeed the Landorus, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, this set was poorly crap. Well, never mind. I'm thinking that Landorus would hit 169 because base 100. I was thinking hit 168. I'm mistaken. That's 178 and 179 for 110 and 111. Whereas Landorus would hit 168 and 100 is 167. So I was mistaking that in my head. My bad. But this Archaeops spread is meant to outspeed Lando, as I don't expect that I'll really need to outspeed Latias. I didn't expect to Scarf Latias at all, and to be fair, I didn't really see the merit, I guess, in my opinion, because it doesn't do enough damage versus my team, in my opinion. But I did bring this thing, so at a +1 speed, I would outspeed any Scarfers I felt would likely come, and I could take hits from any faster Scarfers such as Scarf Latias and Scarf Pyro anyway. So the spread is very fat this week. Obviously, it doesn't really show a lot of fat because it is an Archaeops still. It doesn't have the most bulk. But this does still take hits versus a lot of his team, such as mons like Lando, takes hits from Latias. I can actually roost up versus Latias, Scarf Draco. And then I'm now out of range to the point where it can't even 2-hit KO me after just one Draco. So, as I said, that's why I didn't really expect a Scarf Latias this week, as it doesn't really even break the set. I just roost up first turn guaranteed versus Latias, and I beat it 1v1 anyway. If I get to +1 with Home Claws, Jelly's team is essentially 6-0'd. If I get to +2, there's no possible Mon that wants to take this on, but +1 is sort of I pretty much break everything anyway, even if I don't 6-0 with Archaeops, then I at the very least do get off a lot of damage versus this team, and no matter what, I take out some sort of key threat. Like, for example, if I take out the Latios, I'm assuming it's Scarf Latios, but I'm assuming it's Specs Latios, but if it is Scarf, that's no big deal to me, and I'm fine. If I take out the Pinsir, that's great for me. If I take out Florges, great for me. If I take out Registeel, great for me. So something's going to die. It's going to be very crucial to Jelly. He's not going to want to lose Mons. I'm perfectly fine with just taking out shit for free. So that's really the purpose of this set. Edgequake coverage just seems so well. His team is such a bad Edgequake weakness because all of his, like, his ground type is Lando. It's not even like a resist to Edgequake. So again, just Stone Edge, pretty much always OHGosh Lando after rocks. There is a small chance he could live though. And finally, we do have Meow Hour Mega Kangaskhan with Return, Sub, Drain Punch, and Sucker Punch with the Adamant nature. I didn't need a lot of speed this week. I mainly just sped crept for Modest Circuitry, as I felt like that would be the best thing to speed creep for. Also, of course, that will as well speed creep uninvested Mana Feet if he brought like a fat Mana Feet. But again, just felt like speed creeping the Modest Circuitry was the best bet, as I felt like Modest Specs could just dent my team. And especially if Jelly did bring the webs, Modest Specs would be all he needed to just slaughter my team. And also he could potentially bring in Electrium Z Circuitry and go for like Z Terrain. So again, that's why I expected Modest, because before the setup or before the webs, I'm going to outspeed it. I Sucker Punch to pick it off if it gets faster anyway. Sucker Punch also helps with Latios, for example, and Crobat as well if I'm trying to pick off Crobat or Lando late game if they had just a tiny bit of HP. Return breaks through Florges pretty well, and also helps with things like the Mana Fee, for example. And Drain Punch is mainly a way to hit Registeel, because otherwise Registeel would wall this set, of course. I can set up a sub versus Reggie as well, as Reggie can probably not break a sub unless he's some sort of offensive Registeel. Florges also could maybe break a sub, but most likely it does not. So overall though, this is mainly just to set up a sub on a wall, or to force, when I'm forcing a switch, to set up a sub and then just start denting through his team. Because, as I said, this thing can pick off a lot of things. Or even if I go for a sub, let's say on a faster mon such as Latios or Crobat, and I just pick them off with Sucker Punch, I now do have a free sub versus whatever mon he wants to bring in next. So I felt like this was very logical. Dougal actually gave me this idea. I almost ran a fat Kang, or didn't even bring Kang at all, to be honest. So really thankful to Dougal, as I felt like this is sort of the safest 6th mon I could bring. Let me just make sure. Yep, safest 6th mon I could bring this week. So yeah, that's our team. A little longer team builder than I wanted, but without further ado, let's get right into the game. And as you can see here, Jelly brings the Mana Fee, the Registeel, the Xurkitree, the Latios, Lando, and Mega Pinsir. So a little bit of insight, I guess, before I begin. I'm not sure if Jelly has covered this in his video or not, but the Registeel, I actually looked over the team later on in the game. We sent each other our teams because there's no way Jelly makes playoffs at this point after this game. In general, it was very slim odds anyway, but Registeel was actually missing like over 100 investment. That was the only thing I noticed in terms of that, but that was really weird. The Registeel was just missing so many EVs. So it probably mattered in terms of how it lived in terms of the general game. I'm not overly sure, but it probably at least made a small difference. Also, I play a little weird around the Mana Fee. I'll get into it in the game, but I play a tad weird around it. So that's the other thing in terms of Mana Fee, because I was predicting it was either Scarf, because, for example, he's not going to bring Tailglow versus my team. I feel like it's very unlikely. I figured he was probably going to bring either Scarf, because I could just get spammed by Ice Beam, as my team is a little bit Ice Weak. It would hit, for example, the Roserade, the Archaeops, the Thundurus pretty well in terms of just spamming Ice Beam with the Scarf set, and it could always just click Ice Beam, switch out when I bring Thundurus or Roserade in. He's either Wakan or Windowberry. I'll get into that in the game. He actually was a Wakanberry, spoiler alert, but I predicted he might have been Wakan, because of course he wouldn't have switched out on Roserade if he was Wakan. If he was Rindoberry, because he would have just taken the Leaf Storm and Ice Beam me. Or he could have been Assault Vest to take hits better from the Thundurus, as Special was very obvious, because at the very least I would need HP Ice, and I would probably want Nasty Plot to break through things like Florges. So I figured that was fairly good reason to bring AV, as if I wasn't set up already, then he would at least probably take a Thunderbolt pretty well and then just Ice Beam me. Or, as I mentioned, like, those were probably the options that I was expecting. He ended up being Wakanberry, of course. Registeel, as I said. I also did end up miscalculating on Registeel. I thought, I'll cover this now because it's a really rushed set of turns, I guess, and I won't have time to go in fully in depth on it in the game. But there was a point in the game where Registeel just clicks Ice Punch versus my Thundurus, and then he clicks it versus my Bronzong when I switch it in, And I anticipated that because of that damage, I misread how much damage it did. I thought it did 10 damage to my Bronzong and around like 80-ish to my Thundurus. And because of that, the only spread I figured that could have been this Registeel was 88 attack with an Expert Belt. That was me miscalculating. He actually did 13 damage to my Bronzong, and that was just really stupid. He was 116 with Helmet. So, again, very, very stupid on my part. Could have cost me if I figured that, you know, Kang could just freely come in and just Drain Punch it. And if Kang, of course, needed HP and I just let it take damage like that, that could have been very bad. Didn't end up mattering too much, though. Otherwise, though, I think that's pretty much everything I need to cover, I guess, pre-game. So, as I mentioned here, he didn't bring, I think I mentioned it, but he didn't bring Leavanny, so no matter what, there was no reason to lead off with the Kangaskhan, because if he did bring Leavanny, I was just 100% going to lead Kang and just return and kill it off. He does, however, bring in the Manaphy, which means I can just, I'm pretty safe with my Bronzong lead, as I figured I get up rocks. If he brought Manaphy or Latias, I could just go for Toxic. Even if he brought Xurkitree, I could just go for Toxic and just switch into Clef on any of those three potential setup. He does go for Surf here, however, which is very nice for me, as of course I'm able to get off my Toxic for free, and I don't need to worry about bringing in Clefable just yet and revealing that I'm like an unaware set or anything. As him being Toxic is very nice also because it does put him on a timer, and Manaphy is a pretty big threat to my team if left untimered. So at this point I do bring in a Kiza, as I figured I could take a Surf best with this thing if he's not going to try and set up. Otherwise Clefable would have been my switch in for sure. But if he's just going for Surf without setting up, I'm pretty free to just bring in a Kiza here. I am Scarf, of course, so I'm able to outspeed fairly well. I figured at this point, this is sort of where I get the vibe that he might be Scarf, as he just does Hard Swap. Later on, it does reveal that he has U-Turn as well, and why he didn't just U-Turn versus me, I don't know, as I figured that it wasn't that obvious that I brought Scarf, I guess. But I do get the Spikes here regardless, as I figured that Spikes would be the best way to just pressure his team, as I figured that Registeel was a very likely switch in. And at this point, I'm now pretty free. I figured to bring in Thundurus, as I figured Thundurus was just going to take any Seismic Toss well. He's brought Barrier Registeel every week. I figured he's going to bring Barrier Defensive, of course, as usual. He actually does bring the Offensive Registeel, as I mentioned, gets off around like 80-ish damage with Ice Punch. And I know that I cannot take another, which means I cannot set up versus him and then start breaking his team, because I could have just got the +2 and then went for Z-move and broken the Registeel. So I do bring in Bronzong here, of course. I figured at the very least, he's probably not going to stay in, as there's no way an Offensive Registeel touches me. And I figured I'd just get up Stealth Rocks here, as Pinsir is now pressured, Latias is now pressured to come in and defog, as it is his only defog besides Landorus, but I figured that Landorus could not fit defog onto a set at all this week. I cannot see any moveset that works to bring defog on it. So he does bring in the Manaphy here, of course. As I said, I'm not scared of Manaphy because he's just going to go for Surfs. It seems like he doesn't have any setup on his Manaphy, which is perfectly fine for me. I'm going to go for Rock Tomb here, because initially I was actually going to bring in the Roserade here, but I figured that in case if he wasn't Scarf Manaphy, I didn't want to risk bringing in Roserade and then having him just click Ice Beam if he was, let's say, Rindoberry, just trying to hide it really well. Or B, if I missed a Leaf Storm, I didn't want to risk that either, because of course, missing a Leaf Storm, while unlikely, it could still very well happen. I didn't want to risk anything I didn't need to. So I do bring in the Clefable here. Also, I figured that maybe if he tried to predict my switch and just went for Tail Glow, it's very fine, but I didn't want any predictions of switches, I guess. I figured this was just the safest thing overall that I could do. And also, Roserade, I think, still could put in a lot of work late game, so again, want to try and preserve. So here he actually does reveal to have U-Turn. He probably clicked it because he knew 100% that there's no possible way I was bringing a Scarf Clef, which good on Jelly, I guess, but didn't really matter overall. Here he does bring in his Mega Pinsir, of course. I predicted that Mega Pinsir was probably going to be a switch in here, as I figured he was just going to want to bring it in and set up a Sword Stance. If not, he's going to bring in Registeel here. He proved to actually, his Registeel had no way to touch this thing, by the way. So that was something that I wish I sort of knew. I did see the Mega Pinsir come in though, so I do want to go into Bronzong, as at +2 hell, even before +2, Adamant Mega Pinsir alone with return could do a fair amount of damage to just breaking my Clefable. So I don't want to risk it just yet, as it does help a lot with the Xurkitree and the Manaphy. So I do go into my Bronzong here. I figured that Bronzong was meant to just be a backup check for Mega Pinsir. I'm not overly concerned with just letting this thing go down, as it's 100% sack at this point. As later on I could just bring in the Thundurus. I still do take a quick attack at this range and I kill it off regardless. He can't even bring this thing on rocks anymore because it's below half. And I do see myself being able to fairly well pressure his defoggers, being Latias and Landorus-I, because it's not being a defog this week. So here I decide I'm going to take this opportunity to bring in Archaeops. I can definitely take any hit from this thing no matter what, and I can go for Hone Claws. If he tries to sack Manaphy, that's fine. I can just go for the Hone Claws, and no matter what, his team is sort of fucked. So Manaphy does die between the rocks and the spikes, and luckily that was probably the best case scenario because it keeps Archeops at full HP no matter what. I live any hit from any mon in his team at this point because Manaphy is of course gone, and there's no possible way he breaks me. Xerkatry I knew didn't come in unless he was Scarfed, and if he was Scarfed, that's very easy for me to play around. He does bring in the Lottie, of course, here, and just goes for Draco. I do avoid this attack, of course. That's very lucky for me, as that could have been very terrifying. However, no matter what, I know that since he is just going to go for Dracos, I figured it's probably best for me, since he did live that last one, of course, if I just go for a Roost here, as of course, if I do miss a Stone Edge, that is a very bad scenario for me. And as I mentioned, I do live any hit from the Latias in terms of Draco, and I know I could guarantee pop my Salac Berry, and then go for Roost, because now at this point, I'm going to probably outspeed the Latias and find out if he's Scarf or not. When he would no matter what be Scarf versus my spread, because we'd be speed tying, and I probably would have won a speed tie by now. But I figured that with the Salac Berry, I'm going to force that thing out. It's probably going to be bulky with a Scarf if he does bring a Scarf Latias. So, of course, here I do go for the Stone Edge. I figured that Stone Edge was probably the best play as it hit everything really well, and if he does go into Registeel, I can Earthquake kill it next turn guaranteed. As I was doing around like 80% with Earthquake no matter what, unless he was Shuka Berry. As I mentioned, I did anticipate he was Expert Belt or maybe Helmet in a worst case scenario for me, and I just miscalculated, but probably was going to be Expert Belt and I guarantee killed. He does bring in Lando here, however, and no matter what, I have a very, very high roll to kill Landorus with Stone Edge here. It's almost impossible for him to live. Of course, he does live on the very small roll, that's fine. Archeops has done its job. It broke Latias to the point where it cannot come in ever again and defog. Landorus is now broken to the point where it can never come in again and defog, and I'm going to guarantee outspeed him with the Roserade, unless if he's Scarf and just clicks Rock Slide. But of course, I do go for the HP Ice here. Figured it's my best play as if Crobat came in. Crobat didn't even come, my bad. If Lottie or Pinsir came in, they're sacks. If Lando came in, well, if Lando stayed in, it's a sack unless he goes for Rock Slide, which again, still a sack, I guess. And Xerkatry was really the only other mon he could bring in at this point, as Registeel and Manaphy have died. And I figured that, well, I could have just went for Sludge Bomb here, I guess. I overall didn't really want to just risk, because I did forget that Latias was so low in the game, so I was like, okay, you know, I can just go for the HP Ice. If Lottie switches, and that's fine, I get a lot of damage off on that. And he does here actually go predicting and just go for just any sort of offensive move he can get on my team, as HP Ice is a very safe play there, I guess. He does, of course, here just take the Z move fairly well, and I anticipate this is going to be a very, very solid 2-hit KO. He actually proves to be Assault Vest. I was stupid and thought he might have just been a very, very fat Xerkatry with a lot of offense, but he is actually Assault Vested and has a ton of Spidef. His Spidef was crazy, and that's the only reason he took the Z move really well. I think it was like 236 Spidef and like 116 HP. It was some sort of really fat spread. You'll see it in his team builder, of course, but he does, of course, chew my Gigavolt Havoc here. And this is sort of where I decide I'm going to go sack happy, I guess. I bring in my Roserade here, and I go for the Leaf Storm. It's almost a guaranteed kill anyway. I didn't calc for AV. I figured it was a guaranteed kill versus spread, even though it was still it was a very, very small roll he lived, the Sludge Bomb. Had I clicked Leaf Storm here, I would have won the game. I didn't want to risk the miss 1 and 2. As I mentioned earlier, I forgot that his Latias was so low on HP to the point where it died. So even then though, I still outsped no matter what with Kang, because I know for a fact he's not Scarf Xerkatry, as he's shown that he can just, as I said, he's shown that he's just way too fat to be a Scarf Xerkatry, and still get those damage rolls. So I should have just brought in Kang regardless, and just click Earthquake. So as I said, that's where I get sack happy, of course, but it's overall not the worst case scenario, as it still was impossible for me to lose this game at this point, as the rest of his mons do die to hazards. So I played a little bit poor around this point in the game, I guess, but it didn't end up mattering at all, because you can see Mega Pinsir dies to Rocks at this point, and Latias will die next turn to Rocks as well when he just brings that in. So it was still a secured win no matter what, but I still definitely showed that I've been playing a little bit poorly. At the very least, in terms of my note taking, I do need to improve on that. I should probably be writing down HP percentages, but overall though, I think this at least shows that we're not fully done yet. If we can get one more win, we're at least 3-8, and that's at the very bare minimum what I want to hit. I would prefer, of course, to be better than 3-8, as 3-8 is still really shit, but I would prefer to be like 4-7 or 5-6. So I still think it's very likely. I think I could still beat someone like, let's say, CJ or Melon, get another win, and then even if I beat, like, let's say Leo week 11 in terms of like a meme game, I'll take it. I'm really desperate for wins at this point. So we're 2-4. We're going into our game versus Danza. I'm a little bit scared for this matchup, as Danza does have a lot that he could do versus my team. If he brings some sort of like really offensive build, that sort of fucks me over. I think that though there's still a chance that we could beat Danza, I feel very confident in our team versus Danza, and I'll get into that of course on Saturday when we have our team builder. I'm back with uploads though, guys. I hope you guys missed me because I missed you guys. If you guys did enjoy though, leave a like down below. I will see you guys in tomorrow's video, or if you're just here for D-League, in our D-League builder versus Danza. Peace out.